Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with Jay Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is, I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke, as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and sometimes fun. Hi, friends, welcome back. It's great to see you, great to be seen. And I just want to say thank you. I know in the last 2 episodes, we had the interview with Emma about campy movies, and then we had the interview with Meredith, just talking about her transition from high school to college, everything about her generation's approach to social media. It was great. I enjoyed it. I always get a blast when I get to interview my daughters, but you guys always give me such great feedback. So thank you. I was talking to one person just yesterday, and they said that Emma was their best friend because they had the same taste in movies. So I'll do my best to get them back on again soon. I know Emma will be back on before Meredith, just because of location and that kind of things. But thank you so much for the great feedback. So today's episode is going to be a little bit more intimate. You see my phone's out, my coffee is out. I'm not feeling 100%, but that still means I probably feel 25% better than most people. So I'm excited because I want to share with you some conversations I've had lately. I've been really blessed with the opportunities to do some speaking lately. I've spoken to local realtors. I've spoken to some brokerages. It's been fortunate, and I love the opportunity to speak in public again. I used to do that every week, and now it's more like monthly. And then what has happened out of each one of those opportunities is that people have come up to me, and they've got business ideas. And so they know that I've started a couple of businesses. They know that in the last 2 years, I've gone all in with Capitalize, and they want my opinion. And so they'll throw out a business idea. So I get to be sort of a junior Shark Tank here and ask them questions. So what I thought I would do is I would share with you maybe some tips, some questions you could ask yourself if you're thinking about starting a business. Because first of all, starting a business is a big deal. And I'm talking about filing the paperwork, creating the LLC, you've got taxes to pay. If you can do something on the side and be a 1099, rock and roll, that's good stuff. But if you're thinking about starting a legit business and putting your life and your livelihood in the hands of that business, there are just some questions to think about. So before I get started, I just want to say everyone who's come up to me, I love their eagerness. I love the idea of like, hey, I could start this thing. So no criticism there at all. I've started 4 different businesses. I've started 2 different churches. I understand. And the excitement is huge. And I've got ideas all the time. I have to just put them onto the side and keep a notebook full of ideas. And then what I do is I come back and say, does this idea fit Capitalize? Does it fit my running an apparel company, Toughness Groove? Or is this something completely different? And so it's very important for that. So I want to jump in. Like I said, it's a little bit more of a casual episode. I'm drinking coffee. I got my phone here. But we'll just consider this a fireside chat or maybe a brick wall chat. How's that? So here, you've got an idea. You're like, I could make some money off this. That's usually the first thought. I can make money off this more so than I want to start a business. But if you start making money, you got to figure out what to do with the taxes. And then is it 1099 personal, which is when you're a contractor, or is this going to be a legit business? So there's a couple of very simple questions to ask. And you may already know these, but for some of you out there, you're thinking through them. So here is the most important question. You've got this idea, and you're like, I can make a lot of money off this, or I'd like to start a business. The question you've got to ask, the first one is this. Do you know anyone who would give you money for this product or service? I mean, do you know anyone personally that would give you money for this product or service? Because most ideas begin with a service because they're easier. It's something you do. A product is something you literally have to create, and they're a little bit more difficult. Some of you do have products in mind, but when it comes down to a service, like, I could do this and make a lot of money, the question is, do you know anyone personally who will give you money for this? So the best thing to do is like map out this idea, like, I can make a lot of money doing this. Great. explain it to yourself, like write it out, exactly what you would be doing. And then begin to ask people, hey, would you pay for this? Like, go to that target client, that avatar, that ideal person that you think, hey, this is the target for what we're doing, and say, would you pay for this service? How much would you pay for this service? Would you pay for it once? Would you pay for it monthly? It's really important, because if you can't find anyone who would pay you for this service, don't jump in. Now you might say, oh, well, but my service or my product is for people I don't know. Then I'm going to encourage you to get in front of them, because once you do it, you've still got to find them. You still got to get in front of them. Like, will anyone? Try to find 5 or 10 people who would say, that's a great idea. I would pay for that. Like, I'll give you an example. There's so many people who are good at social media. They've got tons of likes and followers and comments, and they go, oh, I'm going to do social media for money or for business. Great. Find 5 or 10 people, 5 or 10 businesses, and say, would you pay me to do your social media? How much would you pay me? Because that's just it. There's a million people who do social media. We do social media. Lots of people do social media. A lot of people do social media. Great. How much would someone pay you? Can you find someone? Say, hey, would your business, I'm thinking about going into business and doing social media. Would your business pay me to do your social media? Well, that business is going to ask, well, what does that mean? Are you creating the content? Am I providing the content? Do I have to post it? Do you have to post it? Do you use schedulers? Do you use, Hootsuite? Do you do it native? Do you do it through the Facebook beta business? The Meta Business app? How would you do it? And all of a sudden, these questions come up. And then all of a sudden, you're discovering, oh, can I do this? Spoke to someone the other day. They've got a service. They're like, oh, this is a problem. They're solving a problem. That's the best way to start. This is a problem. I can provide the solution for that problem. And I was like, great. Who would pay for it? I was like, I like what you're doing. I'm not going to pay you for it because I know the answer to that problem. So, do you know someone who's struggling with that problem that has said, oh, I would pay this much money monthly, one time for it? So that's the most important thing, because a business isn't a business unless someone's paying you to do it. Do you know anyone who will pay you for that service? If you can answer that, if you can find multiple people, if a bunch of people are like, that's a great idea, I'd pay you for it, then you've got an opportunity to go ahead. But if people tell you, that's a great idea, I'm not going to pay you for it, but it's a great idea, you're not there yet. You've got to find someone who's going to say, I will pay you. I would give this much money for that problem to be solved. Then you're on the right track for a business. Okay? So, got that? Do you know people who would pay you for that product or service? And do you know how much they would pay? Okay? Now here's the next thing. You've got to figure out, I'm sorry guys, I should probably be drinking water, but it's in the AM, so I'm still drinking coffee. All right. How many of those services, question number 2, or those products can you deliver in a day, week, and month? How many? Because I'll tell you this, you can make money doing social media, but for you individually, there's a finite number of how many of those you can do. There just is. There's only so much time in the day. So you would have to figure out, how many of those can I do? How many of those can I provide for? How many of those can I serve? Because if you've got question number 1 answered, and someone has said, I would hire you for that, and I would give you $500 a month. Great. How many of those can you do? You're like, I can do 12 a month. Great. That means you can make $6,000 in a month, and that means that the most your company can make is $72,000 a year, and that's gross. That's not that's not after expenses. So if you can service 12 clients and they pay $500 a month, that means that your company would gross $6,000 a month. Does that make sense? Like, you've got to figure that out. You do. That means your company can grow $72,000 in a year. But that's before expenses. You've got to pay. If you're doing this as a 1099, which means you're a contract worker, that means your tax rate, I think, is 12.5%. And if you don't make quarterly payments, it's actually 25%. If you do it as a company, you've got to pay taxes on that. And then the expenses. There's always expenses. And you've got to figure that out. Are you renting a space? Well, then there's a lot of your money. So figure out, okay, I can charge this much, and there are people who pay for it. That was question 1. 2, how many of those services can you provide? I was speaking to someone recently, and they offered, hey, this would be my company, and we would provide this service. I was like, great, okay, I'm tracking with you. Not a service I need, but I understand it had a different target market. And I was like, and he did this professionally for someone else. So he's like, that's the proof of concept. I'm like, okay, how long does that take you to do? And he's like, well, it takes me about a month to do this. I'm like, okay, 1 a month. How much do you charge? And he told me. I was like, times 12, that means your company can gross this much. Exactly what I did with the second question there. And then he realized that won't cover his living expenses. Well, that means that this has to be a side job that he has to figure out how to do on top of a regular job. And it took him a moment to recognize, oh, wait a minute, this might be a good idea, but I can't make a living on this yet. Now, how could he do more of those a month? Well, he could hire an employee, then all of a sudden expenses go up. And you don't necessarily multiply everything by 2 when you hire an employee because they've got expenses. They are an expense. If they're an employee, you've got payroll taxes, and those things are a doozy. I promise you that. You might be able to pay them as a 1099. That's fine, but then you've got to take those expenses out of the gross. It's great to have an employee. It's great to multiply what you're doing. It really is. But you've got to factor in those expenses. So number 1, do you know people who will pay for your product or service? How much will they pay you? 2, how many of those can you do in a day, week, and month, and year? That's going to help you know what your gross is, your gross revenue. Okay? 3, here's where we need to get down to it. Here's where all this culminates in it. How is anybody going to know you do this? How are you going to get clients? I mean, I can tell you, you can create a website and you should have a website, but how is anyone going to find your website? There's an infinitesimal, I can't even say the word this morning, number of websites out there. How is anyone going to find it? And you can say, well, I'm going to do SEO work. Well, you're probably going to pay for that. You're right, that's fine. There's an expense. You're like, well, I'm gonna advertise it on social media. I'll create a social media page. That's great. You got to factor that into your time, and it's very hard to build a social media following. And also, whatever you do has to be interesting enough to people want to follow your page. And do you know the tactics of social media? Do you know how to present in such a way so as to attract a following and ultimately have people convert from being a follower on Facebook or Instagram to being customers? How are people going to know? You may say, well, I'm going to do it through personal networking. Great. You can do that. I know that in the first 3.5 years of our business, I attended 100 ribbon cuttings. I am not joking to you. I think it was 4 years. I attended 150 lead shares through the Chamber of Commerce. So that was 250 touch points in the first 4 years. It was fantastic. People got to know who I was. Documented it all on social media. It was just basically promoting other businesses. You can do that. It's a slow build. But if you're a local company, it's exactly what you're going to have to do. I mean, it takes so much online exposure for anyone to know who you are. So much. Are you capitalizing on videos? Are you doing Reels? Are you in TikTok? Are you a legit professional presence on LinkedIn? Do your Facebook and Instagram have different personalities? They need to because they're built that way. That's what it's going to take. You may want to pay for marketing. You're like, okay, I'm going to do some Facebook ads. Great. Target them well. Create great ads, but that's an additional expense. So those 3 things are going to help you start a business. Number 1, Will anyone pay you? Do you know people who say, I will pay you for that service and I will give you this much money? How many of those can you do in a day, week, month, and year? That's going to help you know how much money that you can gross. And 3, how are people going to learn about this business? How are they going to find you? And you have to factor in the time and money for that. If you can put those things together, that is how you build a business plan. That's how you put together an idea to start a business. And that's how you know whether this is something legit or not. So I hope this has been helpful. Because, guys, I've thrown up a lot of side businesses. Side businesses are great. They really don't cost a lot of money, and they're sort of an experiment. And they let you know, hey, do I want to go in this direction? I get it. But at some point in time, if that's where you want to make your money, you've got to answer those questions. Do I know anybody who would pay me? Do I know how many I can do in a day, week, month, and a year? And how are people going to find me? If you put those together, you have the foundation potentially for a great business in the future. So I hope this helps. Gang, if you want to learn more about these things, or if you've got a business that you're trying to grow, I'd love for you to check out our website, CapitalizeYourBest.com. That's our program that helps teach you how to put together this marketing to grow your revenue. That's how we help companies with that. So if you want to check out more, go to CapitalizeYourBest.com. That's CapitalizeYourBest.com. Check out that website. There, it's going to show you how to contact me, and we can talk about putting together a program like this for you so you can take this idea and grow it. Take it from a concept and turn it into a profit maker for you. Guys, thanks for putting up sort of with my deeper voice. I don't look the best today. I'm drinking coffee. I'm hanging in there. But I loved being with you. Thank you for all the feedback. I hope this podcast finds you in an encouraging moment. And if it doesn't, I hope what we've done here encourages you. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.
How do you shorten the time it takes to buy a car? Car buying just got easier. Pohanka365.com lets you complete as much or as little of the car buying process online. Pohanka365.com. Car buying simplified. Anytime, anywhere.
Small business owners, you should be praised for wanting to grow your business. That's a good thing, and not everybody has the guts to do it. As a business owner myself, I know you've overcome obstacles that people don't even know about. Hi, my name is Gordon Duncan, the owner of Capitalize Marketing and Consulting, and I want you to know that if your business hasn't grown like you want it to, it's not your fault. If it's not COVID getting in the way, it's ridiculous things like changing social media algorithms. You're right in thinking that very few people are doing small businesses any favors right now. But Capitalize Marketing and Consulting is here to help. We've created a 90-day course that is guaranteed to grow the revenue of your business. It will give you the tools that you've been looking for, and as a certified coach, I would be with you along the way. If you would like to learn more about our program, just visit CapitalizeYourBest.com and get started enjoying the success you deserve. Again, that's CapitalizeYourBest.com, and I can't wait to celebrate all you accomplish.